Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the London International Animation Festival. This is, or you have just been watching International Competition Programme number 5, which is our programme called Into the Dark, one of our most popular programmes. And we've got 3 of the filmmakers whose films have been screening in that programme with us here tonight from all over the world to have a chat with you. We have Sarina Nihei, whose film was Polkadot Boy, which was screening. We have Jennifer Alice Wright, whose film was 100,000 Acres of Pine. And we also are joined by Sarah Benson, whose film was Tenant. And also here with me is Malcolm Turner, my co-festival director. I'll start with a question for you, Sarina, if I can. So you originally studied graphic design at Tama University in Japan, and then you came to the UK, which is interesting, and studied animation at the RCA, the Royal College of the Arts, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I believe, and yeah, that's where you made your film, which was widely seen on the festival circuit, Small People with Hats. You also made a film called Rabbit's Blood, which was also a great film. And now you're back in Tokyo, sorry, in Japan, not in Tokyo, in Japan. But the film we screened tonight is Polkadot Boy. With all of your films, there's I know it's been mentioned before, but there is a very definite Estonian influence and look and feel to your films. First and foremost, I suppose, in the style, the hand-drawn style to them, but also, just a sensibility. There's I'd call it a macabre sense of humor. I don't know if you'd agree with that. You don't quite know what's going to happen next, and in fact, even at the end of the film, you're thinking, "Wow, what have I just seen?" Can you talk a bit about that? What it is about Estonian animation that might sort of influence your films, and what you are drawn to from Estonian animation?
Yeah. When I was in uni in Tokyo, I was really obsessed with Preet Palan's work. At the time, in a local small cinema, there was a special program for Estonian animation at the time, and then I discovered Preet Palan's work at the time, and then I was really into it, and then since then I kind of gradually decided to do animation as a career, or naturally I decided to, pursue animation from that point. And I really love Preet Palan's work because, it's so complicated, and I never ever can understand that what it's all about, and it's so absurd as well, and that's I find it really fascinating. And you can watch the animation over and over again, and yet you're not fed up with it, and that is something that I want to make. Every time I want people to think, after watching my film, I want people to think I want to watch it again. And that's why it's kind of people see my film as a weird film, or I don't know, I'm not trying to make a weird film, but I try to put everything in it. So it ended up really complicated.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what, you know, I feel, and I know Malcolm feels the same. When we watch your films, you know, there's so many different layers of meaning, and they're quite complicated, and you are left thinking, you know, what does this mean? What's this all about? You know, I mean, I could ask, you know, the questions like, why does the boy have polka dots on his arms? And maybe you have an answer for that, or maybe you don't. But it's sort of, yeah, exactly. Everything you've said does sort of chime with the feeling you get when you watch a lot of Estonian animation. But also there's that, you've got that connection with the sound designer. I noticed that you, so you have you worked with, is his name Horit Koos? I don't quite know how to pronounce it. He is the sound designer for Prit Pan's films as well. Have you worked, exactly. Has he worked with you on all his films? Or all your films?
Yeah, in my short films, I contacted him at first when I was making Small People with Hats, because that was my like student film from RCA, and I wanted to be a really great, like in terms of the sound. I didn't have a specific sound designer I can think of, but I loved Prit Pan's film, and I really loved the film called The Life Without Gabriella Ferry from Prit Pan, and Horet did the sound for the film. And so I contacted him saying, like, explain my passion for Estonian animation and his sound, and he agreed. Fortunately, he agreed to work on my film, and he did it for free. So that was amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of the effects are really heightened. You use natural sound in there that are really heightened. I mean, as well, it brings me to think of Svankmeyer's style of sound design as well. Really sort of, right. You know, quite strong sound effects. Okay, Jennifer. So you interestingly, you're a British filmmaker, but you made your film in Denmark at the Danish Animation Workshop, where you've been studying for the last 4 years. Your film, as well as similar to Sarina's, I'd say it's quite an unsettling sort of film. It's about a ranger called Megan. Megan, okay. And her journey into the woods, where she's trying to work out the strange circumstances of her brother's death. And then in the woods, all sorts of strange, creepy things start to happen. I mean, for me, it had a sort of a bit of a Twin Peaks feeling to it. But that's partly because of the technique. I think I was very interested in why you chose that particular technique, because it's a 3D film, but it's made to look like a stop motion film.
Yeah.
So can you talk a bit about your production process and, you know, a bit about the technique as well?
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to make a horror film because that's just what I want to make. And stop motion is the animation medium that I feel best conveys that uncanny valley, creepy feeling above all others. It just works like that for me. That's what I believe. However, the way that we do our bachelor films at the school is you have to pitch to the rest of your classmates at the end of second year, and then everyone votes on what they want to work on, and then whoever gets the most amount of votes and can be gathered into groups, their film gets picked and it's able to be worked on. And I knew that if I pitched a stop motion film, no one would vote on it. So I was like, right, well, Spider-Verse came out not so long ago. Stepped is a pretty cool thing right now, and I think we can make it look a lot like stop motion. And so obviously we were able to make things look very, very textural, and just kind of emulate it through that. And it's mostly just because like I knew no one would work on it if I made it in stop motion, and I wanted this film to be made. And we originally had plans of making the background with photogrammetry, so actually building sets and then just placing the 3D character inside afterwards. But then we were like, we've only got 9 months for this. I don't think we can manage it. Yeah.
Where did that story come from?
I just really like spooky mysteries, and I knew that I had wanted to do something that was like Scooby-Doo-esque. Originally I had something where it was like a bunch of kids in the 60s going out into a forest and just getting lost and horribly mauled by some sort of demon creature, and then that eventually morphed into something that was actually possible for 11 students to make. So we just was like, okay, well, what's more creepy than just a bunch of kids going into the woods? Okay, a ranger, that's someone who belongs in the woods, someone who should be safe and know their stuff there. And what if we make that person feel lost and afraid in the woods? That's pretty groovy. Yeah, and it's a very, very selfish film. Just the kind of things that I like, that sort of hitch in your breath kind of feeling, like, oh, what's going on? Oh, is it the government? Oh, is it aliens? Oh, I don't know, I never want to find out. Like, just that sort of mystery and entertaining feeling. Like that's why I made the film.
But Jennifer, in the credits, there's one credit to the real Megan, or the real Megan. So
I did wonder that as well. Yeah,
it's not as exciting as this.
We're not going to let you get away without at least explaining that.
So my sister is called Megan.
Right.
And I'm afraid that's about as interesting as it gets, and just, you know, the horrors of growing up with her. Yeah.
Crushingly disappointing.
I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, yeah, but I just thought it was also a really cute way to add in the thanks, because I think we also have stuff like a master who was one of the staff members' dogs in there. So the thanks is also a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Like,
okay. And Sarah, okay, moving on to you. You've also made, or your film is also a student graduation film from the IADT in Ireland, Tenant. And again, it's another very creepy tale. I suppose it's about a girl. Is that? I mean, I took it to be a girl, but I don't know if it's meant to be a girl or. But it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, people get confused by the mustache, I think.
Okay. It's about a girl who moves into an apartment with a pretty strange flatmate, it has to be said. And I read somewhere that it was loosely based on some of your own bad experiences that you had as a student when you were looking for student accommodation.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, can you just sort of talk a bit about the production process and how you came to the idea for that story?
Yeah. So yeah, I moved up to Dublin. I'm from Cork, so I kind of picked my accommodation and stuff before I came up. And because the college is quite small, like most of the students tend to live with families and in just their houses. So I went with this lady who lived quite close to the college, and it was like by money and everything as well. You know, it was all seemed good on paper. And then when I moved up, I went in anyway, and all the walls were literally covered in animal heads. And I found out that they were a family of hunters, and yeah, it was just very strange. Coming from like the small town I came from, I'd never really seen anything like this before. So yeah, it was more kind of about the feeling of like living in this like really weird place, and kind of the idea of living with strangers too, and kind of not knowing what was beyond your housemate's door or anything, you know, or what they were up to at times. So that was kind of like a reoccurring theme when I moved to other places in college too, and living with people I didn't really know, kind of just wondering who they are, if nothing else. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Cool. I might jump in here. Some of those, I was going to ask everybody about the sound of their films, even though Sarina kind of got it. Well, did get into it a little bit. But one of the things that struck me that was in some way common to all of your films was the incredibly good job you all did of really nailing the, the classic horror trope of the sound, that kind of hammer horror soundtrack. And perhaps because we have touched on it a little bit, I'll kind of add it to a second question I was going to ask and just kind of combine the two because they are sort of linked. The other thing that I thought all of your films in quite different ways, but the other thing that I thought they had in common was this kind of brilliant sense of kind of I don't know, how would I describe it? A kind of psychological claustrophobia, that would be the, and I wondered if you could, keeping in mind how much sound backs up, the imagery that you create. What is it? The thing I'm really interested in pursuing here, I suppose, at this point is the way you've used animation and the sound to back it up to really create that atmosphere, as opposed to how somebody who might have decided to try and make a film like some of the ones that you've made using live action, although good luck to them. But what part of the unique properties of animation do you think have really served you well in making each of your films? And I'll go just the way my screen's set up. I'll just go left to right. So I'll start with you, Jennifer.
I feel like one of the things that did inspire this film is I ended up spending one summer watching a lot of really atrocious 60s and 70s horror films that are mostly on YouTube, like kind of free domain type things. And with animation, it can feel a lot more, at least to me, it can feel a lot more authentic putting something in a decade. And I feel like I was able to really then ask that from my sound designers and my composer. Obviously it ended up sounding a bit more like late 70s leaning 80s sounding, and just again with the animation, more so than you would with live action, I wanted you to be able to look at everything on screen and imagine what it would feel like to run your hand over it, and you would know. And I think with the sound, I was like, I want everything to sound sticky and wet as well. Like it should feel, the sound should really feel like something as well. I wasn't as good as describing what I wanted to my sound designers. They were absolute angels. It was also a collaboration with another sound school, and they I just remember they spent ages in the recording booth with jam and twigs, just trying to get the kind of squelchy crunching noise that I wanted. Like everything should have just been textural, sound, visuals, everything in this film, because we were just trying to recreate stop motion.
Old school dirty Foley.
Exactly.
Bunch of stuff on a table that has to be cleaned at the end of the session.
So much so. And like the way that we recorded all of the voices for the narration, and the way that we got the tape sound is one of my sound designers, August, he got his mum's very old car and put the sound in there and recorded it through the tape machine there, and would like skip back and play forward. So it wasn't just something he was doing in the computer, he actually did it through this ancient car. It was incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about cassettes at some point if we get a chance. But good answer, Sarah. You're sort of next on my slide. Your film has a very different look and style to Jennifer's and Sarina's, but nonetheless it still has that kind of claustrophobic tone. One of the things I took from your film is the kind of incredible use of really divergent camera angles and that kind of really Hitchcockian sort of style. But again, you know, your use of animation, like, what do you think animation as an art form, or as a platform, as a medium allowed you to do that was particularly special in your film?
Yeah, I think something I really liked about animation growing up even is just how, like, more so than live action, I found, is how you're able to just transport to just completely different world. Like, there's no other medium I feel does that as well as animation. So yeah, it was definitely like, speaking of sound, actually, when I was working with Faith, the girl who did the sound on the film, she's another student in the college, and we were watching loads of like Sakoshi Kon films at the time. So we were like, it's particularly Paprika, with the whole parade, that kind of like, that was so like claustrophobic and crazy kind of going on. So we were like, yeah, we should definitely make the housemate feel like the parade in Paprika, basically. So yeah, she basically made the end section of the film where she like goes into like the weird world part. She made the sound for that before I'd finished like even planning out the animation for it. So I kind of worked with the sound that way, and it really worked well because we like inspired each other kind of as we were going. So yeah, so I think that's what it really works well together that way, kind of. Yeah.
And Sarina, you know, I mean, you got into the issue of sound on your film in a little bit more detail, but your film, of the 3 films that we're looking at here, if you got the 3 scripts together and gave the 3 scripts to 3 live action filmmakers, probably Jennifer and Sarah's film, a live action filmmaker would be like, okay, it's a little bit odd, but I think I can kind of come up with something, and they'd just make a bad version of the film that Jennifer and Sarah made. But I think with your film, if you gave your script to a live action filmmaker, they'd be like, I don't know. So what is it about animation that allows you to kind of create not even the stories, but the atmospheres that you're looking to create? Like, what is it about animation that draws you into making these sorts of films?
In terms of the sound?
Well, the sound kind of backs that up. I think the sound completes the picture that you do, but you've created such a complicated, claustrophobic, or it's not complicated, but a complex, claustrophobic sort of world with the people that are depicted in your film. I think they would struggle to be depicted in that sense in any other form other than animation. I don't really want to lead you towards an answer, but that was the thing that really struck me, and it struck me about all of the characters in your films. And it's like, what is it about animation that makes that possible, do you think?
Yeah, it's a difficult question.
Could you imagine any way that your sorts of characters could be created in live action?
Yeah.
Can you?
I don't know. Yeah, but for me, because like I do everything by myself, and that's why I do it. I do animation because I can control everything like by hand. But yeah, I love. Actually, I wasn't really into animation. Like in the beginning, I was more into films. Like I love like 70s, 80s horror films, and yeah. But
there's a theme of inspirations emerging here, I think, too. Yeah. It's like right across the 3 of you. I mean, just one example is like in your film, the characters, lots of the characters, you know, they sustain quite a bit of damage. I mean, you know, a number of them are just being constantly assaulted, essentially, and some of them may wind up dead. And it just doesn't, you know, it has such a different impact. In my mind, animation allows you to treat characters in this way, in a way that would come across very differently in live action. Do you think that's the case? Is that part of what allows your imagination to treat characters in the way that they wind up getting treated in your films?
Yeah, I like, first of all, when I make a film, one of the main themes is absurdity or like despair. And like when I started making this film, Polkadot Boy, I was talking to Uri Kranot in Denmark, and I showed my storyboard for the first time to him, and he said, like, in the beginning of the meeting, he said, like, you make films for like for your therapy or something, because like I'm mentally damaged or something. And, but yeah, it's kind of true. I was kind of fucked up as a kid, and you know, horrible person. Maybe I'm a bit horrible still, but like I make films for it's therapeutic to make a story, and like always, like the feeling of despair is always like back in my head. So yeah, but I make it like I make entertaining film. So
they are highly entertaining, and it's, you know, it's I mean, I think that's what led me towards the question in the first place, because only in animation could the kind of carnage that rolls out in some of your films. I mean, if it's any consolation to you, I saw it as a kind of a metaphor for indoctrination that schools put young children through. And it's like, you know, you start out as this kind of like great simple person, slowly you get more and more damaged until you're Polkadot Boy and lying dead and bleeding in the hallway. But don't want to put words into you, but I'm just going to go really quickly backwards through the line. It's like I picked out some of the details in some of these films, and I was just really interested in them because I fed some of these things into Google, and now I've just turned up on all sorts of blacklists. But I was really interested in HHH that turns up on, in your book, it like turns up on a book, and it turns up on pill covers. I put HHH into Google, and that didn't go well for me. You know, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of weird stuff that comes up when you do that. Does that mean anything, or is it just something you made up?
Yeah, there's a meaning, but I cannot say. It's up to you. Up to you, I imagine. So
I'll send you the list of stuff that I got off Google, and you can tick the one that. Sarah, the one of the not a detail, but I mean, all those wall hangings, all those things hanging on the wall, they've all got to be deliberately designed. I suppose it resonated with me because I had an uncle who was a hunter and had like real things that he'd killed with his bare hands and somehow stuffed and hung on a wall. And so as a 4-year-old going to stay, it's like, yeah, okay. And you know, each one of those has got to be thought up. And I wondered if the design of any of those particular wall hangings was random, or if it was sparked by anything in particular.
They're actually all the crew members in the film, so I just killed off all my helpers. No, but yeah, it's like everyone who kind of I felt helped me get to 4th year college and everything, and helped me along the way, and like everyone who was helping with animation and backgrounds and stuff, I just kind of wanted to put them in the film somehow. So yeah, I ended up killing them off, which I wasn't thinking of at the time. But like,
thank you. I'm going to cut your head off and hang it on the wall. Thanks for coming. And Jennifer, I mean, there's a ton of things in there. I always like cassettes, white cassettes. But the first thing that really struck me was the phrase, you know, he how can he have died of exposure when he had lungs full of resin? And I was like, okay, that's not a thing that happens. You know, it's just I've never really contemplated. I mean, nobody dies that way, and I've never heard of anybody being killed that way. Like, what's that about?
So I knew that I wanted there to be resin, and then I was like connecting that with the monster, and I was like, just what is a really horrific way to have killed somebody? And I was like, you know what? Drowning in treacly substance sounds pretty awful. And I was just looking for something rather grotesque, and then I was like, lungs filled with resin, that does not happen. That cannot happen. So not only should it kind of sound like absurd that she's having to counter like the argument, oh, he died of exposure, like she's like, this is completely bananas. How can you be believing this? Like obviously something is going on.
Yeah, but that leads in, it's so closely tied to the comment, and it seems like a throwaway comment, but I got it straight over the, what is it, Eric, the helpful ranger?
Eric, they're generic.
Yeah, but he says, you know, just let it be, and that to me suggests a conspiracy of some kind. Yeah. And I just felt we were being led, you know, in a way.
Yeah,
that didn't quite kind of go there.
No, it doesn't go there in the film. Like it, yeah, we had. Originally, they only want you to tell the film in 5 minutes. So we were like, okay, I love the idea of it being like, oh, it's a government conspiracy theory and there's so much more. That doesn't take place in this film. Like, I like that we hint towards it, but it doesn't take place because we just didn't have the time to have that fit and have the rest of the mood of the forest take place.
Yeah. But there's your sequel then.
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, the next film's got some bigger stuff in it, hopefully.
Well, I was actually, I mean, that does nicely lead on to, I was going to ask you all what you, if you're working on anything new now, and what that might be, what you're up to. So, Jennifer, tell us.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a sequel to Pine, since I feel like my canon for Pine is she just turns around, she goes back into the woods to fight the monster and just gets horribly eaten. So that's all over. But my next project that I'm actually working on with a bunch of the team members who helped me with Pine is a cowboy horror with a cult in it. I just want entertaining horror popcorn animation stuff is what I want to make. Just enjoyable mood pieces. Yeah. So that's kind of like just making it with a lot of the same people who made Pine, so hopefully it'll be good.
Same technique, do you think?
No, I'm thinking this is going to be in 2D, but it's also going to depend on so much, because obviously, like, if we get a decent budget, if we get a very small budget, if I end up with a team who's mostly stronger in 2D, like, my hope is for this cowboy project to be in 2D, since I think I want to emulate a lot of illustrations that I've seen that I really like about cowboys, but it could always end up changing. It's still super early on. Right now we're just focusing on like trying to figure out what we want the story to be.
You still haven't pulled some of these people into the dark side of stop motion animation. Like you need one more film out of them before you can
basically. I mean, like, oh God, it's going to take so long for me to convince people to do stop motion, because it's just like, that's not where the jobs are. They want stuff for their portfolio still, which is completely fair, because yeah.
And will you be making this in Denmark again?
Depends if the British Film Institute wants to give me lots of money.
Right, okay.
Hint, hint.
Yes.
It's my vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, are you working on anything new yet, or is it too soon after Tenant?
Yeah, I've just started working in a studio in Dublin at the moment. So I'm kind of doing that during the day, and then I live with two animators at the moment, and we're trying to make a film on the side. So it's hard to get all of our time to align because we're all in different studios. But yeah, it's a kind of an exciting thing to look forward to in the evenings. So yeah, another 2D film. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And the story is written?
No, it's kind of in progress at the moment, so I won't say too much in case it changes greatly. But yeah, not quite the same tone as Tenant, so something a little more light-hearted. So.
And you're getting on with your current housemates, okay?
Like, yes, yeah, they're nice ones, yeah.
How about you, Sarina? Are you working on anything new yet?
Yeah, I'm working on a music video for an American artist, but other than that, I haven't started a new project for my own film. But yeah, maybe like as soon as I finish this music video, I'll start the new film, I guess.
Okay. All right, well, we have to wrap it up there. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to our three guests. Once again, Jennifer, Alice Wright, Sarina Nihei, and Sarah Benson. And my wonderful co-festival director, Malcolm Turner. Me and Malcolm will be back here tomorrow night with some other guests from the festival. But once again, thank you very much for three of you for being part of this festival, and see the rest of you out there tomorrow night. So thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.